Hi, I'm Liam Dann, and this is Money Talks, a podcast about our relationship with money. We're not going to tell you how to get rich. We're not even going to try and pick the next interest rate move. But we are going to get you thinking about your relationship with money and what it really means to you. Today, I'm talking to journalist and broadcaster Heather Plessis-Allan. Hi, Heather.
Hello, Liam.
Thanks for being here to talk about money.
You're welcome.
What were your first memories of money, of having money, holding money in your hand as a child? Can you visualize it?
No, actually, I can't. I don't ever really. I don't have a recollection of physical money. I have a recollection because I was thinking about this the other day. I do have a recollection of trying to make money.
Right.
For some reason, when I was I reckon I must have been about 10 years old, I decided that I could operate some sort of a scheme at school where I went to a stationery shop and paid exorbitant prices probably for staplers and in fact I don't even think it was anything as big as a stapler. It was like rubbers, erasers and pencils and things like that, and then I would hock them off at school to kids who'd forgotten to bring their erasers.
Did it work?
It worked until I think my own interest in it ran out. But for a while there, I was doing okay, I think, yeah.
So that's quite entrepreneurial.
And then I tried to also take up drawing and sell drawings, and that went okay for a little while as well.
Yeah. So you're talking there about growing up in New Zealand. You primarily grew up in New Zealand, didn't you?
I did primarily grow up in New Zealand, but I spent my first half of my education in South Africa because my mum's a South African.
Yeah.
And so that was there where I was doing that. That kind of thing wouldn't fly in New Zealand at school, Liam. You just get the bash, wouldn't you? They just think you're a little nerd.
Well, was it a bit of a shock? Was it quite different arriving in New Zealand?
Yeah, it was totally different.
Yeah.
Because what had happened was the school that I was attending, I came from my mum's family come from a really small farming community town, probably the size of Gore, I reckon.
Yeah.
So not that small really, but in South African standards, comparatively very small. We came from a town there, and the school that I attended was what you would probably consider to be sort of semi-private in New Zealand language. And so, there were let's cut the BS, right? There were standards. There were really, really big standards of behaviour and dress and a lot of stuff like that. I came here, went to Tuakau College, Decile 2. Yeah. Might have been Decile 1 at the time. It was rough, man. It was a rough school, and it was a really big learning curve, huge experience because, there were some kids causing all kinds of mayhem in school and stuff. It's a fantastic school. I finished my schooling there and I really love it, and all my friends and teachers from there, but it was a big change.
Sure, yeah. So was it your parents obviously made the big move? A lot of South Africans did through that era. What sort of jobs did your parents do, basically?
Well, my dad is a Kiwi, right? Or was. He passed away a couple of years ago. And so he was already over here.
Had the connection.
Yeah. And so we'd actually lived between, and I was born a citizen essentially. So it wasn't like a massive migration. For my mum, I think it probably was, certainly the first few times that we moved here. Anyway, my mum was a stay-at-home mum, and she had been an estate agent, and so she moved over here. But she moved over because she what had actually happened the final time that we moved here is my stepfather, who was also a Kiwi, had run into, I'm just going to tell you the truth here, run into trouble with the law in South Africa. He is a major alcoholic.
Right.
And he had he got himself in so much trouble with the coppers that my mum decided to send him back to New Zealand and be rid of him, and couldn't follow through. Yeah. And so, because she had a child with him and stuff, and so she came out, and he at the time was he was working as a tradie, and I think he was working for another company and eventually set up his own business and stuff like that, and he was reasonable. He wasn't doing too badly, and then my mum went back to estate agency.
Yeah, so
agencies.
It kind of, I don't know if it's different in South Africa to here, but it probably is. But broadly, a sort of fairly middle class sort of upbringing in New Zealand. Yeah,
absolutely.
Did you have a part-time job, pocket money, those sort of things?
Yeah, I was a newspaper runner. What do you call it? Newspaper delivery girl. Yeah. I did that, and at school, and then later on went to work. Obviously, everybody's first ever job, McDonald's.
Right. Yeah. What was the what were you saving up for? What did you spend the money on?
Do you know? I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. Just, I think probably whatever was necessary. Whatever I needed to do. Liam, I have no recollection whatsoever of what I did what I did with my money as a young person. It wasn't really until I think I got to university where I can recall what I was doing with my money, which was obviously cigarettes and alcohol.
Right. Yeah.
And, having a good time and trying to pay your rent, which is just so hard,
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions I always like to ask is, what's the poorest you've ever been? Was that your
university?
Student years?
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough time. And I think it's really important for kids to go through that and learn that if you're going to spend, what was then an $8 glass of wine, if you're going to spend it on wine, you're just not going to be able to buy yourself a tin of beans.
Yeah. So did you leave home to go to university and get out there?
Yeah, my mum is based in Pukekohe.
Yep.
So I would relocate to a flat in Greyland, for example, and that would last probably about 6 months.
Back when flats and students could live in flats in Greyland.
Yeah. I mean, we were lucky, weren't we? Yeah. Walking distance, and then I'd go back 6 months later, tail between my legs, too poor to continue.
Yeah. Were you of the student loan era? Did you get burdened with that?
Yeah, I remember was it the 2005 election when Grant Robertson conjured the plan for Michael Cullen to wipe the debt, or wipe the interest. Yes, and on account of that, they definitely got my vote.
Yeah, I recall having just paid off my student loan.
Oh man, I'm sorry. And your generation got the hard times.
Well, when I look at it now, and the what was considered a really generous interest rate was 7% on your student loan, and it just piled up year after year if you didn't
totally.
Pay it off. But how about the sort of the career choices? I mean, so when you're at school and then going to university, was there a sense of were you targeting the media, or you didn't want to be a doctor or a lawyer? I
wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah. And
I remember one of my first encounters with a politician was actually I got taken along by my stepfather, not the alcoholic one, the one that if he finally got dropped, thank God. An upstanding citizen and war veteran and stuff, and I got taken by him to some sort of a function in Pukekohe, and Simon Power was there.
Oh yeah.
As like an up and coming young National Party MP, and he talked to me about. So anyway, I met him, as you do with the young people. You get them to meet the MPs and have a chat to them, and he said to me, "Go and study law. It's a really good idea, and then you could do whatever you want with it." And so I'd kind of been considering that, and I was going down that path. And at the very last minute, I discovered that Auckland University had a politics paper that you could take, several politics papers, and that was that. I was just,
loved it.
I just love politics, so I ditched every single plan I had with no foresight and no thought as to what I was going to do with it for my career, like absolutely none.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to spend 3 years studying it. It was a super indulgent move on my part, and one I regretted as soon as I then graduated and struggled to find a job in the media, and finally found one that was paying, I think it was honestly $34,000 a year or something. It was so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that answers the question which I ask a lot of people. Was money a big driver in your career choices? It sounds like it wasn't a focus at all.
No, not really. I never really thought it through properly. I mean, I think I just probably had enough self-belief to think that I would make it work.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like I knew that if I had a sense that if you worked really hard in whatever field you're working in, you can make a lot of money. I would definitely not let my son do what I did.
Yeah.
I would be driving him to some sort of career choice that pays him through the nose for doing nothing.
Yeah. You weren't attracted to the idea of actually doing politics, like getting in with one of the parties and working your way up?
No, for some reason, wisdom. At a very young age, decided not to do it.
I guess that's not a money-driven
no,
thing really either.
And if you look at it now, Liam, what a terrible career choice for anybody. It's such a hard time to be an MP,
Yeah, I guess if you make it at the top and you can go and be ambassador in Ireland or something. But
there is that.
How about just back on the sort of the money choices? You mentioned indulgence around doing the arts degree, but one of the questions is, what's the most indulgent purchase you've ever made?
Oh, gosh.
Do you splash out? I mean, are you someone who
No, I am so tight-fisted. It's actually, my mum yelled at me the other day for how tight-fisted I was. Yeah. She got really cross with me because I am too tight-fisted. I am so careful with my cash. It's probably slightly pathological, actually. And I think it comes from growing up at times quite poor, like relocating countries, and then money was really, really tight, really tight. And I don't think that I ever want to end up in that situation again. And so I don't like to spend money. So I thought probably the most indulgent, but this is quite indulgent actually. The most indulgent I've been has been to insist that my husband spends his money on a relatively new car.
Right, yeah.
Which was a European car because I thought it looked nice. That was ridiculous. I mean, I sometimes think, how on earth did I make that decision? Well, it's working for me, so it's fine. The other indulgent thing that I did recently, Liam, was that I bought, my baby's about to start eating solids, so I bought this little thing that's about $400, and you can steam the vegetables and then mush the vegetables into a pureed form for him. And because I've realised after having a baby has changed my perspective on cash, because what I've realised is I have enough cash. What I don't have is time now. And it's changed the value that whereas before I had heaps of time and I could do all this stuff. Like, I mean, this is how tight-fisted I am, right? I did my own renovations. I jibbed the walls. I plastered. I did all of that stuff to save that money. And then I had the time. Now I don't have the time anymore. I'm still tight-fisted, but I am more likely now to spend $90 on getting my house cleaned a week because I just don't have the time to do it myself and buy a $400 food processor for a 5-month-old because it's better than cleaning 3 pots.
I mean, you could call that an indulgence. It's sort of good economics in a way, though, isn't it? Because the value of the time has changed and your
That's right. And so I do the mental arithmetic, right? And I think, well, this is my hourly rate. Am I prepared to spend that much money at my hourly rate? If I spend half an hour doing that, right, that's how much that's going to cost. Is it worth it? And of course it's not. And I'm getting to the point now, Liam, I get my groceries delivered. That costs me $25 a week in subscription to Countdown. It's fantastic. I get also food to Uber delivered on a much more regular basis than I would have. And I'm about to, I think, just can home cooking altogether and just get those ready-made meals in from really flash places like Farrow that are really delicious. Because I don't have time. Yeah,
well, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit the same. It's taken me a long time to get over, to realise that, it's a false economy sometimes to spend your own time on things.
I call this maturity.
Yeah, I guess that's it. And I guess, I mean, some of it comes with age, but as you say, becoming a parent is kind of a bit of a massive mind shift that you've been through in the last year.
Yes, and fortunately it's temporary. So fortunately, you still have those baseline skills of being able to cook for yourself and the enjoyment of it and stuff. Yeah. But that's just going to have to be on hold for a couple of years, I think, I
don't want to sound cynical. It's temporary the way inflation's temporary. It's about 15 years, 18 years.
Jeez, okay.
I don't know. I've got my own challenges with teenagers. But that's.
I'll get an Uber Eats subscription based on that. Thanks.
Yeah. Jumping back to the career story and just. So you've come out of university, political science degree, and did you go and do a short journalism course, or did you just...
No, I tried to, but I'd left it too late for the AUT postgrad course. So what I did was I basically interviewed. I applied for every single job I could find. It took a long time. Meanwhile, I was managing a Sounds record store. Do you remember Sounds?
Yeah,
in Papakura. That was a rough time. That was a great deal of fun.
Peak of CDs and.
Oh yeah, we still had cassettes.
Yeah,
and we'd have some of the more challenged members of community coming in and having a tantrum and throwing the cassettes at you.
Do you have a favourite song about money?
Dire Straits, obviously.
Oh, yeah, Money for Nothing.
Wouldn't it be?
Yeah, why not?
What's yours?
I've thrown this to... ties me up in knots. I tied Grant Robertson up in knots with that question, tied my brother up in knots with that question. Grant has an obscure song by The Jam about class consciousness.
Oh, geez, that's a bit... Okay, well, you'd have to say that... who is it? Jarvis Cocker. What was his band called? Pulp. Okay, so that song, Common People, which is basically about money, that's fantastic. But no, actually, I lied to you. My favourite song about money is the one that goes, I want money.
Oh, yeah, that's what
I want.
Yeah. There's a good tune. There's a lot of good tunes about money. But I guess you're, again, it doesn't sound like your career has been chasing money.
No, it hasn't. But what happened was... I applied for every job I could find, and I eventually got taken in by Radio Live, who were desperate for staff because they'd only just rebranded from whatever they were, Pacific or something, or Global, whatever at the time. And I interviewed well enough, I think, on account of having listened to the radio news on my trip in that day. So I knew the pop quiz questions, which were based on the radio news that day. It was total fluke. I got the job. I realised how poorly paid I was, and at that point I started chasing money. And I was very aware of it, because then I remember all my offers, right? Then I went to TVNZ and they paid me $43,000 a year. It got bumped up to $46,000 a year. And this is like a couple of years into way more than a couple of years into your career at this stage. And I just made it, I became slightly obsessed with trying to increase my pay, because I found my vocation. I just needed to get paid more.
Yeah. We talked about this yesterday, but there's a lot of talk about gender pay gap and the unfairness of that in some cases. You've kind of made it a bit of a mission to, on a personal level, to focus on that and
well, I just don't think that it needs. Look, I have very little tolerance for discussion about the gender pay gap. Actually, I can't speak to racial pay gaps because I'm not speaking for myself there, but for myself on the gender pay gap. We have been told as women long enough now that we get paid less than blokes. So it's on you if you are getting paid less than a bloke now. Step up. That's what I would say to a woman. Step up and demand to be paid as much. It's not that hard, it's not that hard. And look, I understand biologically why this happens. It's a bunch of things. It's primarily, a lot of it is you're the one breastfeeding, and it's a schlep if you try to breastfeed your child while you're working, which I'm doing, and it is hard. It's really, really hard. It takes a lot more time, which is the commodity you do not have. And so, there's that. There's also the fact that you guys are prepared to take risks way more than we are. We are homemakers naturally, right? We are more conservative because we want to protect what we have, whereas you're prepared to gamble what you have in the pursuit of more. That's why blokes get paid more. But I just think, you have to decide as a woman, would you rather be the conservative one, in which case be my guest and do that because that's what works for a lot of women, or do you want to be the risk taker? And if you're going to be the risk taker, take the risks, ask for the pay, gamble it, go for it. So
that's often requires, being tough in negotiations and being prepared to walk away. You can't really negotiate unless you're prepared to walk away.
You have to be serious about it, and you have to. What you also have to do is your homework, right? So you have to know what everybody else gets paid. And to the extent that you possibly can. And a lot of colleagues will talk to each other and confide in each other and stuff. It's actually not that hard to find out. Find out what people are getting paid. Find out from other people what their approaches have been, and go in and go hard. And don't let the fact that you are a woman hold you back. And I think, I just really think personal responsibility from women. We are now at the point where we cannot complain about it anymore. We have to take responsibility.
So I guess what you're saying is don't wait for legislation to go through to try.
And that's ridiculous. I mean, that's going to be so counterproductive, and it's going to have all kinds of, consequences that we can't foresee right now, right? That are not going to be good for us, I don't think. Because I don't think anything, I'm always on the side of don't regulate, any regulation only if it's absolutely necessary. I do not think it's necessary in this case. I think women can, it's not like being a woman is not a disability. So you don't need legislative help here, I don't think.
So this question, I guess, interesting in that it leads on from that. But you're a prominent broadcaster. You've got a Sunday Herald column, so no shortage of platform for your views. But I'm interested, and I always ask people, why do you think some people are poor and some people are rich? What is the big driver of that, especially when you think about people who do come from poor backgrounds who make it out, those who don't, and vice versa. It's not necessarily, as we've discussed with you, a focus on just making money and so on.
I think look, I mean, obviously it's a bunch of stuff, right? Because if we could all nail the one thing that makes you poor or rich, we would all be rich. But I think so much of that comes down to role modeling. And I read this thing one time where it said, if you have a poor parent, so in our household, we grew up with an alcoholic stepfather, which is a terrible thing to have in the home, right? And actually what you would expect is that every single child who came out of that household would have major delinquencies and issues, because you should not grow up in that environment. And I wondered why it was that all three of my mum's kids came out reasonably normal, right? Obviously, major disclaimer, not everybody will agree. But I read about it. And
minor delinquency.
Minor. I was reading about it because I was curious. And what it said was that, what I found was that if you have one role model, one of your parents is still what we would call normal or functional, right? You're okay. because you have a role model there to show you that that is not how you live, this is how you live. And I suspect that that is what it comes down to, is just, do you have a granny or an auntie or a mum or a dad or a godparent or somebody in your life, or a teacher who can demonstrate to you what ambition looks like and what you should be doing, the ability to stretch yourself and so on. I think that's a lot of it. There's a bunch of other stuff, you know. For example, I mean, I look at people like Peter Beck, and I wonder what makes him so amazingly successful, or Richard Taylor, and I suspect that those guys just don't march to the same drumbeat that we do, you know. So if what looks to us like a ridiculous idea, you want to go to the moon, that's mental. To them, that's not that crazy, you know. And so I think there's a bunch of stuff, but I do think role modelling is very important. Yeah,
I agree. And just setting up some horizons. I mean, the people, I haven't actually talked to Beck, but the billionaires and the very rich people I talk to, often money's a byproduct. They're obsessed with an idea, and they're chasing an idea and a vision. And if you're Graham Hart, then that vision involves making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So another one, you didn't want to be a politician, but if you imagine that you had all the power for a day, what's something that you would do that you really think could make a big difference around poverty and inequality?
I'd bomb Wellington. I am so serious. There are days I just wish, not for bombing Wellington, obviously I live there, but there are days that I wish that we could just start again, because I think that we have got so far down a track of wasting money on central government. I mean, if you take it back to its fundamentals, central government is a group of people coming together, right, which is the population of New Zealand, deciding we can't live in anarchy, so we're just going to set up a little system to make it work, right? And it should be, at its most fundamental and basic state, is just the bare minimum of what you need. I sound like so right-wing right now, right? I know that. But I do believe in absolute minimal government, as much as you possibly can, because then you're contributing as little as you possibly need to that, and all of your money is your own to do with what you want, right? So what's happened instead is that as we've gone on longer and longer and longer in this system of modern democracy, and the Westminster-style government and public service and stuff, it's just got so bloated. It's so bad. And so now you've got all these numpties running around there who are numpties because they know they've got jobs for life, so they could just do nothing half the time, which is what a lot of my friends in the bureaucracy are doing, and they won't mind me saying that. And they're wasting our money, and then they're dreaming up weirdo ideas for how to try and solve things like child poverty, which is never going to work because it doesn't address the fundamental problems. And so we just waste it. It was just this circular wasting of money, and for all of my life, I'm just going to have to watch them waste my money and people remain poor. So that's what I would do, is I would start all over again, and I would say, okay, you are gonna run the child poverty department. What are you gonna do about it? And I would put all the money that is possibly needed into that to make it work.
I guess, and you know, that's almost a non-party political line. It's both, you know, both major parties in this country, give or take a little bit of policy difference. You're going to have to watch them.
Do you know what though, Liam? Okay, so that's dreamland. But reality, what would I do about poverty? I would probably look very seriously at Bill English's social investment policy. I think that could be a game changer if it's done properly. If we could agree between ourselves as a country, regardless of what your political party is, who, you know, whatever, if we could all get together and say, okay, listen, we are now going to spend whatever it takes. We know who the problem people in this country are. We know the kids being born into homes where the likely outcomes are not great. You know, we can see it. The key indicators are there. Parents are getting in trouble with the cops. Parents are on the dole. Parents have mental health issues, addiction issues. They're in state houses, whatever. You see all the key indicators. You know the kids are going to have trouble. You break that cycle. You invest what you need to. If it's a lot of money, you invest a lot of money. You take all the time you need. And if we could all agree, Labour, National, ACT, the Greens, everybody, that is what we're going to do for the next 50 years, maybe we could get somewhere.
Maybe we could do it. Yeah, getting that consensus across anything. There's a few things, I guess, where the parties are able to. Where New Zealand has a degree of consensus. I mean, it's you know, relatively speaking, we sort of do a bit one way, but the other. I mean, you know, I guess when you look at New Zealanders and money, we are a bit sort of
frugal.
Yeah, we're frugal, but we're not hugely entrepreneurial as a people, probably, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I think it's just a general attitude that we have, right? We are, I don't want to say ambitionless, but we are what was Simon Bridges calling it in his book? Something like the lifestyle culture or something.
Yeah.
I mean, we're enjoying our lives. I love that about us.
We are Pacific Islands, even though we're the slightly colder version. But
yeah, we're having a good time every day and every weekend, and so we don't really need. I don't know that we always think far enough ahead to think that we need to invest in this stuff right now, and we need to put a big lump of cash there. We don't really think about that stuff, do we?
Okay, just to finish up, this is not financial advice if the FMA is listening, but just wondering, are you a big investor or are you a cautious investor? And, what sort of advice do you have about money?
Liam, you're going to be so disappointed in me. Property market, all the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stability of it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also because I understand that in order to invest wisely in the share market, unless you're prepared to delegate to somebody else your portfolio, which is not a bad idea, obviously, but if you're prepared to do it yourself, you need years of experience to understand all the little moving parts to make your money work for you properly. And I don't have the patience for it right now, or the time for it. So the easiest place for me to put my cash is into property. And I know I will get a return from it eventually.
Yeah, the security. It sounds like, I guess if we're sort of summing up that, money for you and finances is really just about having that security there to live your life.
Yeah.
Once you've got that in place, you can slowly learn to indulge a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I never want to be poor again. That's all. I just never want to be poor again. But I don't have to have a yacht in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't need to helicopter to my weekend house. That doesn't interest me in the slightest. I just want to have, I just want to send my kids to school knowing that their tummies are full and I can turn the heater on until the day I die if I'm cold, even when I'm really old and grey.
Yeah.
That's all I want. I just want comfort.
Fair enough. Heather du Plessis-Allan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. If you've got feedback, drop me a line, liam.dan@nzherald.co.nz. And if you want to hear more of these, please subscribe at iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.